At first you might be thinking, is this a story about a war that occurred over land or an area in which chimpanzees lived, or maybe even a dispute between activists protecting the land and people wanting to use it? Well, that is not what this story is about. It is more complicated than that. In recent years, researchers have learnt a lot about these incredible creatures. One thing that has come to light is that chimps will actively hunt down their enemies. After taking their lives, researchers were shocked to learn that the chimps will even eat their enemy. One such story was told by researchers who were following a group of rivals. They noted that one family purposefully staged an attack on the nearby enemies. Once they were finished with the attack, the group carried a baby chimpanzee back to their territory and went on to eat it for a meal. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at a community of chimps and their behaviour at the Gombe Chimpanzees War. So, what is or was the Gombe Chimpanzee War? First off, we should discuss what the war actually was. Between January the 7th, 1974 and June 5th, 1978, two groups of chimpanzees in the Gombe Stream National Park waged a terrifying and violent war on each other. The two groups of chimpanzees were once part of one unified group, until 6 adult male chimpanzees, along with 3 adult female chimpanzees and their young, branched off from the original group, and formed a new chimpanzee community separate from the original. The original group, known as the Kamaha community, was now left with just 19 adult chimpanzees in total, 7 males and 12 females, along with their young. It is important to note before getting into the conflict that there were only minor signs of the chimpanzees' aggressive behaviour in relation to the territory before this 4-year-long war began. There were disputes over food and where chimpanzees would eat, but there was nothing to prepare the researchers for what would happen over those 4 years. The beginning of the war. On January 7th, 1974, at the Gombe Stream National Park in Tanzania, the Gombe Chimpanzee War began with the first casualty. The group that initially splintered off from the original community were known as the Kasakela community, led by the 6 adult males, Humphrey, Jomeo, Fegan, Everard, Rodolphe, and Sherry, but was commanded by Fegan, the alpha male, who drew first blood. Godi, one of the adult males that stayed with the original group, was feeding alone on a tree when all 6 of the aforementioned adult males pounced, brutally taking out Godi. When this attack happened, this was the first time any of the chimpanzees had purposely taken out another fellow male. After celebrating their victory, the 6 males went on to kill Hugh, who led the original group along with Charlie and Dee, 2 of the other male chimpanzees. After the ambush, with just 4 remaining adult males in the original Kamaha community, Goliath, an elderly chimpanzee who had tried to be kind to the Kasakela community in previous encounters that did not involve bloodshed, was then killed when the Kasakela group did not share the same kindness. Now, the Kamaha community had just lost over half its adult males, with just 3 now remaining. Charlie, now the sole leader, Sniff, and Willy Wally. Unfortunately, Willy Wally had been crippled from polio, so he was unable to defend himself or his community. In rapid succession, without giving the Kamaha group any time to fight back or plan their own attack, the Kasakela chimpanzees hit again, this time killing the leader, Charlie. Once Charlie was taken out, Willy Wally disappeared and was never found, whereas Sniff, the youngest male, managed to survive by himself for over a year. Researchers had thought that Sniff would be able to be accepted into the Kasakela community, or that he had managed to escape the war into a new group, but this was not the case. Around a year after Charlie was killed, Sniff too was also killed by the Kasakela males. The adult males were not the only casualties of the Kasakela's attacks. Of the initial Kamaha group's females, 2 of them went missing and were never found. 3 of them had been kidnapped into the Kasakela community and 1 was killed. The Kasakela males had managed to take out almost all of the Kamaha males, with Willy Wally's fate unknown. They had also successfully taken over the Kamaha territory and had won the war, or so it seemed. Battles were won, but wars were lost. The new territory that the Kasakela community had gained would not be theirs for long. The previous Kamaha territory was direct neighbours with another chimpanzee community, the Kalandi. The Kalandi community greatly outnumbered the Kasakela community and were far superior in general strength. The new border between the two communities was now the location for violent outbursts between the males, and very quickly, the Kasekela group decided to move back towards their original territory. And in the process, the Kalande community took much of the Kasekela's newly acquired territory. After moving back, the Kasekela community were then constantly in minor skirmishes with Matumba foragers. The Matumba foragers had larger numbers compared to Kasekela, and as a result, over time the war died down and eventually a common order was restored at Gombe National Park. Aftermath and reaction. Jane Goodall was a lead researcher at the time of the war, and she spent 30 years studying the chimpanzees of the Gombe National Park. When the war broke out, it was not expected at the time. No one ever thought something like this could or would happen, especially Jane Goodall. Jane was shocked and disturbed at the whole thing, and had spent her time researching up until that point with the notion that chimpanzees were rather nice when comparing them to humans. The events that occurred and the Gombe Chimpanzee War itself was so unheard of at the time that when Jane Goodall was reporting on the events that were happening in Gombe National Park, other researchers did not believe her. A naturally occurring war between chimpanzees was never believed to be a thing that could happen, yet it did. Jane was then accused of inadvertently causing the war through her feeding research, and some scientists at the time were completely adamant that this could not happen. It was not possible. Almost 50 years later, in 2018, there was a study that was published looking into the Gombe Chimpanzee War, and the study had concluded that the war was probably caused by the power struggle between the three top chimpanzees, Hugh, Charlie, and Vegan, which was then made worse by the exceptionally low number of fertile female chimpanzees in the community. And that concludes the story of the Gombe Chimpanzee War. But what do you make of these chimpanzees, and do they mirror us humans? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.